I'm Josh Barrow, host of Left, Right, and Center, KCRW's weekly forum for civilized debate across the political spectrum. Today's news cycle demands more time for deeper analysis, so Left, Right, and Center is now a full hour every week. Subscribe and listen at kcrw.com/LRC.
On To The Point, we try to make sense of the policy debates and the political sideshows on the campaign trail.
Neither party's agenda really aligns with who its coalition is today.
It was the dumbest speech I have ever seen in my life of covering politics.
When people walk into a voting booth, at the end of the day, they do say, I really should vote for someone smarter than me.
I'm Warren Altney. To The Point has you covered for the 2016 campaign. Find the To The Point podcast on KCRW's iTunes page.
From KCRW Santa Monica and KCRW.com, it's The Treatment. Welcome to The Treatment. I made Reggie Watts cough. We can retire the show now. I'm done with this. He's still coughing, but he was kind of laughing when he's coughing. Yeah. But you know him. I actually met him. He probably doesn't remember this. On the old Late Night with Jimmy Fallon show, the first month of the show, you were there that night, and the Roots played a really long set to close it out. It was you and one of the stars of How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, you remember that?
Oh, my God, that's crazy.
That's when I met you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's when I met you. But
that's a long time ago.
In the interim, he's toured with Conan. He's done Comedy Bang Bang. I knew him back when he just had an afro.
That's what I did. I did afros back in the day.
Of course, you know him now. Let me do this right. All the way from Stuttgart, Germany. I wanted to give you the kind of shout out he gives Mr. James Corden every night on the Late Late Show with James Corden, where we now know him for having the most fabulous collection of velour jackets in the history of late night television. He's also co-starring in the film Creative Control. First of all, it's good to see you again. It's been like 10 years now.
That's about how long it's. Yeah, that's crazy. You were there the first time I was on TV.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
now we're on radio.
Yeah, then now probably the last time you're going to do public radio.
Oh hell no, I'm all about it.
But one of the things I was talking to you about that night, and it plays a little bit into the version of you playing Creative Control, but also in what you've done since then, is I mentioned Brian Eno to you. Mm-hmm. And that idea of atmospherics and ambience, which we just got a taste of as we hear the microphone stands, the arm reverbing here. Yeah. The idea of not just because people always say beatbox you, but I was thinking that you being the way opens up everything in every pot to get all kinds of stuff in, so it's just ambient and not just the beat.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's something that's actually kind of died out in current music. I mean, that idea of atmospherics and using a space like the space we're sitting in and using all the sounds in the spaces and creating that. Just thinking about your first version of the Comedy Bang Bang thing, where you're just hearing all that kind of silence in there, all that space that fills up the space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nowadays, I guess people, the short attention span thing, like you gotta like occupy every space with something, some whiz bang doodad, which I kind of get. But the funny thing is, if you play something like, I don't know, like an Earth, Wind, and Fire track or something with like a deep groove, like most people are gonna start dancing to it. Like even young kids are okay. So it's not like the music industry is like responding to a need to make music a certain way because otherwise they'll lose people. It's just that for whatever reason we've gotten to a point where we just kind of, what I like to call it, we just kitchen sink it. It's like they just throw everything at it to like, keep your attention here. We're going to change the timbre of this. We're going to like throw in 18 samples within 3 seconds, and that's going to be the groove. The groove's going to be made out of 18 samples. They're just going to be hard splices together so that you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know. Hey, this is cool. It's because it sounds complicated. It's so complicated. It's got to be good.
But this thing you're talking about, because I think about that Comedy Bang Bang thing or the Late Late Show thing, which starts off with that crash, which is just his way of sort of sit up.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to have a whole bunch of stuff on you to pay attention if it's the right piece. And the idea of having a live band, this must be like one of the coolest things in the world to you on this show.
Man, the band is incredible. I mean, all the, I knew immediately that I wanted Tim Young and Steve Scalfati, Steve on keyboards, Tim on guitar. And then auditioned drummers and found Guillermo, who's an amazing creative drummer. He's just perfect counterbalance to what those guys are doing. And then Hagar is just an insanely gifted musician. She's an incredible bass player, but she her mind is so musical. She speaks music, and so her, Tim, and Steve can speak notes and chords and things like I know enough about music that I know what people are talking about when they're talking about key centers and chord changes and passing tones and stuff like that, but I can't speak it. I'm more of I hear things. I can hear things, or I can either hear things in my head, or someone can play something and I can play it back, or I'll remember it for a long time. I definitely can do that. But so it's amazing to have people like speaking music again, having Hagar writing charts in real time. Like I might make up something like, hey, and she's like, just like writing it down, and I look and it's like, oh, there's the transcription. It's amazing.
But it's cool for me too, because actually being in that Fallon studio, which is still a great sounding old studio, and I haven't been in the CBS studio yet where you guys do the show, but it reminds me of the old David Letterman late night band, that 4-piece band.
Oh, right. Yeah, smaller band. Yes.
Yes, which, because I feel like now there's so much need to sort of prove this, but just a band where basically it's about keeping the groove going.
Yes.
Where it's not filling up too much space.
Yes. That's essentially, it's also economics. Because they're like, we don't have the money for, I wanted a percussion player, which I think would still be a good addition, like a percussion player that could play a horn. Would been great, because then Steve plays saxophone, all ranges, and so we could have like a little horn section thing. So it'd be like 2 horns if they played like flugelhorn, trumpet, or trombone and saxophone. You have like a nice little range there. But we just couldn't afford it, so we're kind of like it's rock band formation. You've got keyboards, guitar, bass, drums, and me on vocals, sometimes synthesizers. So it's kind of a classic. Yeah, rock band. It's kind of nice.
But I like that, though. I like the idea, because I know you so much from doing electronic stuff, to see you with a band. And that first week, your sheer excitement of being there with a band. I still remember the first week, it was like you couldn't sit still.
Yeah.
You're having so much fun there.
Of course. It's like a lot of the times I'm just like, I can't believe we're doing this. Like, every time we come to work, and we have this intercom system, we can communicate to one another during breaks. And if you could just record the conversations that we're having, like during a show or during a rehearsal of the show, it's just ridiculous. We're getting everything done, but we're also just saying the most dumbest things you can imagine. It's just like us just screwing around. We're just screwing around and having a good time. But that's how I wanted it to be. I wanted to be with a crew of people that I could have a sincerely good time with, that are way overqualified for what's expected of them. And that's what all the late night bands are like that. They're all like ridiculously talented musicians. So in a way, they are kind of slightly overqualified. But in my philosophy, I try to create something that's simple enough that to an expert, hyper professional, badass, talented person, it's really easy for them to accomplish. So that way, you maximize the fun, you reduce the workload, and you maximize the fun, and that's what we do. We have fun. It's awesome.
But it just feels like even the way you dress on the show, you're basically treating like you're a cool old style like house lounge act, aren't you?
Yeah. There's definitely like my thing is I was going for the Muppet Show band. Like I wanted a little bit of a Muppet band, So the jacket is.
You have Dr. Teeth.
Yeah, totally. I'm Dr. Teeth, but he was a little bit more hippie, kind of, like hippie, grungy, rocky hippie kind of dude. And talk like this. He was kind of probably from New Orleans, because he was based on Dr. John, right? John. But I like the spirit of just like hey guys, what's going on? Oh no, hey, what key is that in? Like that's what it feels like when we're up there. And even just watching Steve playing piano, I just imagine him as Ralph the dog, because he has this happy look on his face when he's playing, and he's just kind of like smiling as he's like playing these really cool things on the keyboard. And I'm like, he's so Ralph, And Tim is kind of some weird composite between, again, Dr. Teeth and someone else in the band, and Hagar is a little bit like the bass player, but she's also kind of, from a cartoon or something, and Guillermo is like super animated, awesome, incredible drummer. So Muppet Band achieved, I think.
My guess was bringing velour, Rolf, and Charles Stepney back to late night television. Woo! There you go, right?
Yeah.
Is Reggie Watts. We should talk a little bit about creative control. Or what's so interesting to me about your career is everybody seems to have a different idea of you when they sit down and talk to you. So, and what I like about reading these interviews is that you actually sort of sculpt yourself into it a little bit, and you're having a little bit of fun with them. I think that you kind of go, yeah, okay. Because one will say you're really earnest, the other says you laugh all the time. It's like, well,
Yeah.
they're not really talking to you. They're talking to you, but this idea they have of you. And it's in creative control, you're almost playing like an idea somebody would have of what Reggie Watts is like.
That's interesting thing to point out. But really, I guess that's a great way of explaining it. It's like I'm playing a version of myself that version is a way that someone might see me. You know, I tried to just be as honest as I could be in the movie. You know, that was the weird thing. It's like, it's me, but it's me in the future, you know, and kind of like a parallel reality version of myself in the future. That's what I was playing. And yeah, it felt kind of strange, you know. I was like, well, what would he be doing? Like, what would he be like? But really, I just had to settle back at, well, try to be as honest as possible within this world because it's a movie and I'm not trying to steal the show by being this huge clown, even though in comparison to all the other characters, I am kind of a clownish figure to kind of like balance out the movie a little bit in its seriousness. But I just arrived back at like, oh, just be as natural and as sincere as possible. How would I react in this situation if it were real? You know, acting, I guess. I guess. I'm not really an actor, so that was an interesting discovery.
But I just find, too, I think because you do so many things and people don't know how to really suss you out, and so much of pop culture nowadays is about saying you're this and you do this, is that people arrive at this conclusion about you. What would that Reggie Watts be like for somebody to meet, like that first scene with the voicemail?
Well, you know what it is? I think I fell in love with Gene Wilder's depiction of Willy Wonka. You know, because that opening sequence, it's a brilliant moment because he fought for that moment. Like he had to fight really hard for that way to present who is Willy Wonka. Oh, here's your first glimpse at who he is. The fact that he was a trickster, you know, and that he's limping, you know, on this cobblestone like plaza as he's making his way to the big gate, and all the kids are like, oh, you know, he's frail, he's weak, and then at the last second he sticks his cane in between the cobblestones and it like stays upright, and then he does a forward somersault, or I guess that's what you call it, and then he like pops back up with his hat and he's like, hey, you know, that's like, that did everything for that character, and in a way that's kind of what my character is, kind of happy-go-lucky trickster.
But also, too, almost in the, as you were saying before, to balance the kind of seriousness of that, this guy who everybody else is so kind of self-absorbed and so focused, the idea, well, if you can't get me here, well, try a shaman who should be able to get to me telepathically. Just this idea that version of you where everything is open to you, unlike everybody else in the movie where all these possibilities are closed off to them.
That's true. Yeah, I guess I symbolize, in a way, a form of freedom. And, you know, it's funny. I think the movie is very poignant on many, many levels. I think it addresses something that a movie that I haven't seen a movie address in the way, the spirit of it, like this kind of zeitgeist, maybe too generational, like what's technology doing to us kind of a vibe. But in a way, like the title Creative Control, it's like it really ambiently pervades throughout the movie. It's a perfect title for the movie. It's, you know, what I represent is creative control or creative freedom, actually. So yeah, everyone's seeking creative control in their individual professions in the movie because it's a creative ad agency. So generally, those people are like, yeah, I'm doing this as a job, but, you know, I've got these art projects I want to do, you know, and they may be completely true. It's totally true. They are artists, but people are kind of striving for that freedom. And so I am kind of that, but to a level at which it becomes irresponsible.
Because I was guessing, you said it here, that you must have been tickled by the idea of that contradiction in the title, creative control. Well, if you have one, you don't really have the other, do you? Or
I know.
You shouldn't want the other.
I know. It's funny because it only makes sense in business, in art business, which I would definitely say marketing, at least in the aesthetics of marketing and even in the philosophy of marketing, it's that industry's version of freedom. is creative control, which is amazing. Yeah, because as an artist, like doing your thing and making a living at what you do, you don't ever think of creative control unless you're partnering with a larger entity and say it's some kind of a brand or something like that, and it's something you vibe with, and you're like, oh, that'd be cool. And they're like, well, we want you to do this and this. And then the language is, well, this artist needs creative control. But really it's creative freedom. So, I don't know. It's funny. It's jargon, but it's just it's a perfect title.
Yeah, because it's basically sort of suggests the war of being like an artist and a business person.
Yes.
The idea of creative control. Well,
Yeah.
What do you want to control? A creative impulse?
Yeah, exactly. Ah, that's awesome.
See, I can be right every once in a while. We're going to take
Yeah.
a break. I'm going to give my guest, Reggie Watts, a chance to go cough and finish his drink. It's the treatment. There's more to come. Stay with us.
Listen to the Rhythm Planet podcast to explore music from all corners of the globe. Brazilian, European, African, and tropical Latin. Rhythm Planet is a state of mind. Listen at kcrw.com/rhythmplanet or on KCRW's app.
Welcome back. It's the treatment. I go into destroy the mind of my guest, Reggie Watts. He does so much stuff. Now we know him primarily from The Late Late Show with James Corden and this new movie, Creative Control. But I want to get back to sound a little bit, just because sound is so important for you. Yeah. I mean, the idea of, first of all, music and comedy, but the idea of the way comedy can be sounds, which is to say, like almost like musique concrète, like free sound, as the idea of it being something that suggests comedy rather than being an actual joke.
Yeah.
You play around with things conceptually a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. The abstract of a joke is kind of what I'm going for. It's, essentially, a joke. Just the basic mechanism of a joke is, expectation, subvert expectation, and you can subvert it in a few different ways. You can play into it, play off of it, or negate it. Usually, my favorite jokes are jokes that there is no punchline, which some people would call, I guess, kind of anti-jokes or anti-comedy or something like that. My friend Brent Weinbach, an amazing comedian, he calls it, I think, postmodernism, like postmodern humor. And I kind of get what he means, meaning that, the abstract, for me, like setting up something and having it drift into nothing, or setting up a kind of a traditional setup to a joke and then abandoning it and just kind of disregarding it and moving on, not making a big deal of it, but just moving on to the next thing. And that creating comedy is so enjoyable for me. It's absurdism. It's a form of an absurdism for me. At least that's what it feels like when I'm doing it.
Because I guess I've wondered this, and I'm glad you're here because I wanted to ask you about this. You lived for so long in time, you could go into spaces with people not really quite knowing who and what you were. Mm-hmm. And being able to, again, subvert that expectation by coming out and being either really aggressive or being passive and having people not know how to react. But now people get to see you 5 nights a week and see an idea or have an idea of what you are. At least, strictly speaking, they have attached the brand comedy to you. Sure. So how do you go in now and subvert expectations where you used to be able to just play on the fact that people had no expectations about you?
Yeah, it's funny. I would think like at a certain point that would start to affect me, but I've noticed that you can always surprise people. Because you can always use whatever expectations someone has of you, whether it's zero expectations or a specific expectation. As long as you can sense it, you can always flip it. Like no one can ever be. You can't like have a total expectation that is like 100% accurate, therefore there's no mystery, and then you're kind of irrelevant. That's a nightmare for me. But I find that whatever situation I go into, people really don't know what is going to happen. Sometimes I do all musical sets, sometimes I do a character for a while. I like the idea of a stand-up comedian. I'll do that for a while, or I'll talk about music history for a while as some character, or I'll be really honest and talk about things that I feel, and then have a very emotional kind of connected experience for 10 minutes and then suddenly subvert that. So I find that there's enough, as long as you can draw people in and trick them, as long as you can trick people, it's fine, So for me, if someone gets used to me in a certain way, it's the same thing as someone not knowing anything about me.
Because I was wondering a little bit if you missed that, the idea of being able to go into a space. Because I remember that night at Fallon, people just didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And I just remember the producer like standing at the edge of the curtain. He's the guy who drew the curtain back for me, and he was like, you're not gonna say anything, you know, inappropriate or something like that, or some question like that, which is a fair question to ask because I was improvising and I provided no script. I didn't do an audition tape or anything like that.
Oh, really?
No, it was off the sheer will of the writing staff. Like the writing staff were a bunch of friends of mine. We worked in the comedy scene in early aught days of New York City when everybody lived there. Now everybody lives in LA, but all these amazing writers. And yeah, they asked for materials, so they could verify things. And I was like, I don't have any of that. And they're like, okay, I guess we're just going to trust you. So in a way, they took a big leap. But I remember him saying that before he pulled back the curtain. And I knew Quest a little bit from touring in another band that I had, and we'd run into him. So that was nice and encouraging to look over and like, there he is, and he's smiling. I'm like, okay, cool.
Because those guys were laughing, by the way. It was almost a classic like late night sketch where the audience, a bunch of like white collegiate kids going.
Yeah.
I'm just looking around right now, and the band just kind of like having a great time.
Yeah. Oh, I know. They're just like they're totally laughing. Yeah, because it's like what you're talking about. With music. Music is a language, and jokes. The way you tell a joke, it's still all the same stuff. It's still sound, tonality, timing, timbre, texture, concept, context. All of these things they apply to every communicative like performance art. So, you just tune it to a different dial. Now it's mostly about talking. But yeah, so for them, I think whatever I was doing, I'm coming at it from a musical place. So even if I'm talking, they're hitting it. They're getting hit on the musical level too. Other people in the audience, they're probably like, what's going on? But that's great. And I'm so glad that Conan, was like, yeah, let's have that. Whatever that was, open for me. I'm just like, okay, guys, are you sure? But it's cool that it translated. I think because Conan's a music guy. He loves music. I mean, all the late night hosts do, but Conan plays music, and he's just a very musically minded guy. When you speak to him, he sounds like a musician when you're talking to him. So, I think that he probably picked up on that.
It's the truth. We're talking tension and defying expectations. My guest, Reggie Watts. He's co-starring in the film Creative Control. And of course, we can see him on The Late Late Show with James Corden. But many of us know him from Comedy Bang Bang, which really was like a show that invented itself with every episode.
Yeah. It's a loose, fake talk show format.
With 90% fake guests.
90% fake guests. Yeah, I mean, they were all fake guests. Yeah, I would say, we had people play themselves on occasion, but then we had tons of character guests. And, they created a fake talk show format, and I was a fake one-man band. Real, but it's a fake talk show. So, yeah, it's a crazy show. It's funny. Last night I went and saw Iggy Pop at the Terragram.
What was that? How was he?
Oh, he's amazing. Oh my gosh, his voice is incredible, and his energy is insane. Even though he's got like the bad hip and the bad knees, and he's still just filled with this incredible life force that you can really feel all the way at the back of the room. And then, Queens of the Stone Age are backing him up, or at least most of the members of the Queens of the Stone Age. And Josh is a huge fan. And Josh invited me. So I went there and saw that. But the funny thing was, like, I was backstage for a little while saying hi to Josh and those guys. And Sarah Silverman was opening. And I love her. And
you guys put Josh together.
Yeah. Josh. It was me, Sarah Silverman, Michael Cera, and Tim and Eric. And yeah, we were just chilling backstage, and then I was like, oh, okay, the show's about to start. So we went out to the crowd, and then I just picked a random spot, stopped, and started looking at the stage. And then I got a tap on my shoulder, and I turned, and it's Scott Aukerman and Weird Al Yankovic. And I was like, what? This is crazy. And Weird Al's the new music director.
Yeah, but I guess I'm wondering for you, this idea of commenting on an expectation, or either ironically or putting quotes around it, or italicizing it, conceptually, that your idea of sort of like taking an expectation and flipping it is basically the way you're built, isn't it? I mean, how far back does that go for you?
I would say probably, as far back as I can remember, because I think it had to do with having like multicultural parents and multiracial parents, and then decontextualizing that a further step and putting that in Montana. I think all of those factors really, and being an only child, really created kind of I feel like I was an observer a little bit always on the outside of situations, like trying to figure out what's the approach to the situation. If it was a social situation I really wanted to play, I had to figure out how to get in there, because some kids might be like, who's this different kid? And so I had to figure out how to adapt to social languages when I was younger so that I could achieve my goal of like having people to play with or, whatever, just having company. And I think that mixed with one of the tactics that I would use is humor. I think that all of those factors kind of made me kind of cognizant of different approaches to any situation. And so because of that, it gave me a little bit of a buffer memory before I would enter into a situation to think for a microsecond before I did something to then affect, to try to, have a certain positive outcome or whatever my outcome was. So as far back as I can remember, I think it has to do with being an observer and seeing as many approaches to a situation as possible.
Because I wonder part of it, too, is almost coming in playing a character became part of the way you dealt with people, too. And sort of let them know that character and then let them get to know you if they were interested.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. I always tell that to people because sometimes, I've heard from people it's like, well, he's always on. And, well, my favorite compliment or the thing that reassured me that I'm not just a crazy on character all the time is I played in a band with Wayne Horvitz, who's an amazing performer, composer, jazz pianist, synthesizer guy, and Bill Frisell.
His material, oh my God, yes, yes.
He's a badass. But I was in this band with Julian Priester.
Holy smoke!
Yeah, Avon Kang, Tucker Martine.
Oh
it was an awesome band called the Wayne Horvitz 4+1 Ensemble. And I remember going to rehearsal over at Wayne's house, and one of Wayne's friends came over, the same age as him. And, at the time I was 27, Wayne would have been like, I don't know, like late 40s or something like that. And, and they were hanging out talking and I was talking to them. And then his friend kind of turned to Wayne and was like, how do you know when this guy is like, how do you know when this guy's serious or when he's joking? And Wayne, like without like missing a beat, he said, I know exactly when he's joking and when he's not. And I thought, just like commenting on your phrase about like, having a character and then letting someone, get to know me after that, like that made me feel so good because I feel like it's easy to get misunderstood, because I like to be positive and I like to kind of do trickery and throw things here and there, but I'm also very willing and immediately willing to talk about something very serious and something that I care about. So it's nice when people can figure that out pretty quickly and I don't feel like, let me show you how sincere I can be.
For me, that gets back to this idea, and this must maybe tickle you a little bit too, that so many people when they talk to you are almost kind of forcing this idea of what they think you should be on you. And you end up playing characters to respond to that to some extent, don't you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, sometimes you play along, like someone's like, hey, could you blah, 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 for whatever reason. And I'll be like, yeah, sure. I mean, if it's something that I just need to get out of, like a situation, I'll agree with them because I mean, it is a possibility. What they're saying, it's not like it's not true. It's just one way that they're seeing it. So I'm not going to like discredit them. Be like, I'm not like that, unless it's something like, I don't know, like you like to, kill birds with your hands, and I'm like, I don't do that. I mean and I don't, by the way, but it's like if it's everyone sees everything differently. We all have our own perspectives, and if we could be in each other's heads, we'd be very surprised about what we think of each other. I mean, we definitely have a strong connective sense when we're communicating with people, and we can feel an emotional connection to somebody if we have that, and it feels sincere, and you know what's going on. But like sometimes, if someone's coming at you and it's a transient situation, then you just kind of like reflect what they want to see to a certain extent. But I think we all do that to an extent. If someone's like blah 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 blah, and you just need to get out the door, you're just like, yeah, absolutely, that's cool, yeah, I love, yeah, those are great. See ya. So I don't know. We all do some version of that. Whatever I just explained was.
Well, I need to get out the door myself.
Yeah,
so
okay.
My guest, who doesn't kill birds with his hands anymore, is Reggie Watts. He's co-starring in Creative Control, and he's also the musical director, I guess we should say, on the Late Late Show with James Corden. Thanks so much for doing this, Reggie. Really, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Seriously.
Oh. I don't know how to take that. Let's thank Patrick for recording the show here at NPR West. The show is mixed at KCRW by Kat Yor. It's edited by Blake White, who's the associate producer. Don't expect anything from me. I'm Elvis Mitchell. It's The Treatment. To catch up on past episodes with The Treatment, go to KCRW.com or listen on your smartphone with KCRW's mobile apps, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. The Treatment is produced and distributed by KCRW Santa Monica.